I am honestly puzzled by the way our first reading today ends. Napagalitan si Moses. Moses is being rebuked by God for not showing forth God's sanctity before the children of Israel. And as a punishment, he is told that he would not be allowed to lead the Israelite people into the promised land. Well, that task would now be given to Joshua, his successor. He would die on Mount Nebo, right at the threshold, at the doorstep of the promised land. But he himself would not be able to set his foot on it. He would only be allowed to take a glimpse of the promised land. Parang ang lupit, ano? And I ask myself, what did the poor Moses do to deserve such a punishment? He has been described as God's intimate friend, the meekest man on earth, the man whom God spoke to face, the man whose glowing face thou reflected the glory of God. Well, suddenly, after leading the Israelite people for 40 years in the desert, just before entering Promised Land, he is being punished and deprived of the pleasure of seeing the fulfillment of his dream. I actually asked this question in a final exam for my students in Pentateuch many years ago. And one of the interesting answers that I got when I asked why Moses was punished, his answer was, maybe because he struck the rock twice. Dalawang beses hinampas yung bato. Of course, I asked him to explain his point. And his explanation was this. I think striking the rock twice means Moses was having a tantrum. Parang nagdadabog. He had allowed himself to be provoked by the group that was questioning his authority because they were running out of water. The Lord had instructed Moses to make the water gush forth from the rock so that they would see how God has consistently provided for them, and hopefully they would stop being rebellious once and for all. But Moses could not keep his cool anymore. It's like he had lost his formerly meek and patient character. And to paraphrase what he said to those who were asking for water, what he actually meant was, how dare you question my authority? And so he struck the rock twice to make the water flow to prove himself instead of proving God's providential care. And he gets punished for it. Well, I think the simple message of God is, it's not about you, Moses, it's about God. Yes, they are stubborn, these people. They are stubborn like a rock. And they fail to see God as the rock of their salvation. But you are becoming conceited yourself with your attitude. You might be forgetting that you are not the rock yourself. Only God is the rock of salvation. The rock, ang bato. This is the constant image that is linking together our readings for today. Yes, all of them, including the responsorial song and the gospel. we have heard of the rock from which water flowed in the first reading. And then we heard about the rock of salvation in the responsorial psalm, Psalm 95. And now in the gospel, we hear about Simon Peter, who is nicknamed Peter by Jesus, meaning rocky. You know, Saint Peter should be called Saint Rocky. He is called the rock on which the Lord will build His church. Peter is becoming somewhat like a Moses character himself in the gospel. First, he is commended by Jesus for making a confession of faith in Jesus as the Christ, the Son of the living God. He is called the rock here. You are rock in the positive sense, meaning the one whose faith would serve as the foundation on which the Lord will build His church. But later, when he blocked the way of Jesus to Jerusalem, he is called Satan. Get behind me, Satan. And now he's going to be referred to as a rock again, but in the negative sense. He is called a stumbling block, isang batong katitisuran, a stumbling block to the mission of Christ, the Son of the living God. Ang bilis, ano? What a quick shift of imagery right within the same narrative. But you know, this is a good lesson and a good warning for leaders like us who might end up misleading the flock if we allow ourselves to be defeated by our ego. Yan ang malaking kalaban, the ego. Well, that happens when we begin to think too highly of ourselves. I think that is the reason why Moses was told by God, "You were not faithful in showing forth my sanctity." I think what God meant was, you allowed your ego to get the better of you. So you ended up trying to prove yourself, to prove your worth. And that usually happens. It can happen even to good leaders. When they are still met with resistance in spite of their best effort. And then their ego is hurt. And something goes wrong. This is also the reason why Jesus said to Peter, "You know, Peter, you are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." From a rock foundation, we can quickly shift to serving as the stumbling block when we allow ourselves to be defeated by our ego. It is the Lord's way of reminding Peter, it is the Lord who builds His church. He did not say, "On this rock, you will build my church." No. It is on this rock that I will build my church, not you. It is the Lord who leads, not you. He wants to lead through you, but you are never to forget that it is not about you.